Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be tackling something that's been kind of lurking in the shadows of this crazy election, all this election interference stuff. And our editors have put together a really incredible report on what's actually going on out there.
Yeah.
And it's not your typical election meddling story, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it really is remarkable. This election has become a global chessboard almost. Multiple players all making their moves, trying to, influence the outcome. And we're not just talking about one country meddling, we're
Yeah.
talking about three major powerhouses, each with their own agendas and methods.
Okay, so we're talking about Russia. Obviously, we're talking about Iran. We're talking about China, all vying for influence.
Mm,
But this report suggests that they're not exactly all on the same team here, are they?
not at all, no. In fact, their objectives are often completely at odds with each other, which makes their strategies even more interesting, right? It's like this three-way tug of war with America stuck right in the middle.
Okay, so let's break this down a little bit. I mean, Russia, we all remember what happened in 2016. But it sounds like this time around they've really upped their game. I mean, they're not just messing with memes anymore, are they?
No, definitely not. I keep thinking about that quote from the report, creating alternate realities. And that's not hyperbole. They're using deep fakes.
Hmm.
And we're not talking about those, janky ones from a few years ago.
Right.
These are sophisticated, almost undetectable forgeries that could very easily go viral and, really sway public opinion.
Hold on, deepfakes. Now, for our listeners who might not be totally up to speed, what do we talk about here and why are they so dangerous?
So imagine a video so real
Yeah.
that it fools even the most skeptical viewer. That's a deep fake. They can make anyone appear to do or say anything. And in an election where every soundbite matters, this is a weapon of mass manipulation. Think about it. A video of a candidate, confessing to a crime or endorsing a rival,
Yeah.
or making some really offensive remark, this could completely derail a campaign. And by the time it's debunked, the damage is done.
Yeah, that's scary stuff. Especially because we already see so much misinformation flying around. So Russia's using these deepfakes, but are they still pushing for Trump like they did in 2016?
The report suggests that they are. But what's interesting is that it doesn't seem to be about personal loyalty to Trump this time. It's more about his policies aligning with Russia's strategic goals.
So it's not about, Putin's bromance with Trump anymore. It's more cold, calculated strategy.
Exactly. They're looking at the bigger picture here. A Trump presidency with its potential for, weaken NATO, decrease support for Ukraine, a less interventionist foreign policy. That would ultimately benefit Russia's geopolitical ambitions.
So Russia's playing the long game here. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit, talk about Iran. The report paints them as being driven by revenge.
Yeah, and that's accurate. The events surrounding General Soleimani and the unraveling of the nuclear deal have fueled this deep resentment towards Trump within the Iranian regime. They see him as a threat to their national security, and they are determined to prevent a second term.
And that puts them directly at odds with Russia. It's not every day you see these two powerhouses on opposite sides of the geopolitical fence.
It is unusual, but it highlights how complex this election interference landscape really is. Iran, according to this report, would actually prefer Harris in the White House.
Now, that's a twist I did not see coming. Why on earth would they prefer Harris? I mean, she's no pushover when it comes to foreign policy.
Well, it seems their preference stems from a belief that they can better manipulate a Democratic administration. They see Harris as more predictable, someone they can potentially influence through back channels and diplomatic pressure.
So while Russia is going for that shock and awe of deepfakes, Iran is opting for a more subtle, almost surgical approach. It's like they're digital assassins targeting very specific pressure points within the American political system.
That's a great analogy. Think about it. Hacking into key email servers, leaking damaging information to campaigns, planting disinformation in strategic circles. It's all about precision strikes aimed at weakening their target and achieving their objectives, without leaving any fingerprints.
Wow, this is getting seriously intense. Okay, so we've got Russia backing Trump. We've got Iran seemingly in Harris's corner. Where does China fit into all of this? They seem to be playing an entirely different game altogether.
China is definitely the wild card here. They're not fixated on any particular candidate winning. Instead, they're aiming to sow chaos and distrust in the entire American political system. It's less about who occupies the White House and more about undermining faith in democracy itself.
So they're not picking sides. They're just trying to make the whole system look bad. That's unsettling, to say the least. How are they doing that? What are their tactics?
They're exploiting the deep polarization that already exists in American society. They're amplifying extreme voices on both ends of the political spectrum, fueling conspiracy theories, creating this climate of fear and suspicion. The goal is to make the entire democratic process seem dysfunctional and untrustworthy.
It's like they're trying to hack our collective psychology,
Yeah.
make us all so cynical and distrustful that we just give up on the system altogether.
That's a great way to put it. And what's even more concerning is that they're not just focused on the presidential race. They're meddling in local elections, congressional races, even school board elections. It's about infiltrating the entire fabric of American democracy and weakening it from the inside out.
So while Russia and Iran are playing their respective games on the surface, China is digging deeper, aiming for this long-term systemic takedown. It's almost like they're playing 4D chess while everyone else is stuck in checkers.
That's a very apt comparison. And here's the kicker, it all ties back to China's larger strategic goals. By making American democracy look chaotic and ineffective, they're trying to bolster their own authoritarian model.
Right, the whole "look how messy democracy is, our system is so much better" narrative. So even though Russia, Iran, and China all have different motives and strategies, their actions share this really disturbing commonality. They're all trying to undermine American democracy.
Precisely. And that's where things get really interesting. Because despite their differences, their meddling in a strange way might inadvertently be highlighting the very thing they're trying to destroy, the power of the American voter.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How does their meddling highlight the power of the American voter?
Well, think about it this way. They wouldn't be putting so much effort into manipulating our elections if they didn't believe in the power of the American voter to really, shape the course of events. They're terrified of a truly engaged and informed electorate because that's something they can't control.
So you're saying their meddling is like a backhanded compliment to the power of democracy.
Exactly. By trying to manipulate us, they're acknowledging that we have the power to make choices. Choices that directly impact their interests. They're acknowledging that our votes matter, even if they're trying to distort the process.
That's an interesting way to look at it. So what does that mean for us? The average voters out there. We're bombarded with information, misinformation, deepfake propaganda. It's easy to feel completely overwhelmed and powerless.
Oh, I totally get that feeling, but that's exactly the trap they want us to fall into, right? Apathy and resignation. The report actually highlights this really powerful countermeasure to all of this, and it's surprisingly simple, our vote.
Wait, so you're saying the best weapon against foreign interference is just going to the polls?
Absolutely. Think of it this way. They're trying to hack our democracy, and the strongest firewall we have is showing up and voting. Every vote cast is a declaration that we won't be manipulated, that we believe in the power of our system, even with all its flaws. It's a direct challenge to their efforts to undermine us.
So by participating in the process, we're actually fighting back. It's like we're reclaiming our power with every ballot cast.
Precisely. And it's not just about who you vote for. It's about the act of voting itself. It's a collective statement of defiance against those who seek to, undermine our democracy. It's about saying we're still here, we're still engaged, and you're not going to break us.
That's actually pretty empowering. But knowing what we now know about these sophisticated tactics, how can we be sure our votes are even making a difference? I mean, what's to stop them from hacking voting machines or manipulating the results?
That's a valid concern. And the report does address the vulnerability of our election infrastructure. There have been significant efforts to strengthen security and prevent tampering, but the threat is real.
So what can we do about it? What steps are being taken to protect the integrity of our votes?
Well, there's a multi-layered approach to election security. First, there's the technological aspect, hardening voting systems against cyber attacks, using paper ballots for audits, implementing robust chain of custody procedures.
So it's about making sure the systems themselves are secure, and if there's a paper trail to verify the results.
What about the human element, though? I mean, what's to stop someone from manipulating the process from the inside? Things like poll worker training, voter ID laws, and bipartisan election monitoring come in. It's about having checks and balances at every stage to ensure transparency and accountability.
So it's a combination of technology and human oversight working together to safeguard the process.
Yeah.
But what can everyday citizens do to contribute to this effort?
Well, one of the most important things is to be informed and vigilant. Pay attention to news about election security. Be aware of potential threats. and report any suspicious activity to the authorities. Also, support organizations that are working to protect our elections, like the Brennan Center for Justice or the League of Women Voters. They're doing crucial work to advocate for election integrity and hold those in power accountable.
So it's not just about casting our votes, it's about actively participating in the process and being informed citizens.
Yeah.
But there's another piece to this puzzle, isn't there? The report mentioned something about the January 6th congressional vote being a potential target for interference.
Yes, that's a significant concern. That vote, which is usually just a formality, has become this focal point for those who want to disrupt the peaceful transfer of power.
So what can we expect? What kind of tactics might we see at play?
Well, we could see a surge in disinformation campaigns aimed at discrediting the election results, pressure on lawmakers to overturn the outcome, even attempts to incite violence or disrupt the
It
proceedings.
sounds incredibly volatile.
Yeah.
What can be done to protect this crucial step in the democratic process?
I think awareness is key. The more people understand the significance of the January 6th vote and the potential threats to it, the harder it will be for those seeking to disrupt it to succeed. We also need strong leadership from elected officials who must uphold their constitutional duty to certify the results and resist any pressure to subvert the will of the people.
So it's about vigilance awareness and a commitment to upholding democratic principles. It sounds like we all have a role to play in safeguarding this process.
Absolutely. And it goes beyond just this election. It's about protecting the very foundations of our democracy for generations to come.
This whole conversation has really shifted my perspective. I went from feeling overwhelmed and powerless to realizing that we as citizens actually hold a lot of power in this fight.
That's exactly the point. They wouldn't be trying so hard to manipulate us if they didn't believe in the power of the American voter. It's a reminder that our votes matter, our voices matter, and our engagement matters.
It's almost like they're inadvertently revealing their own fears and insecurities by trying to control us. It's like they're saying, we're scared of what you're capable of if you're truly informed and engaged.
That's a powerful insight. And it brings us back to the idea that knowledge is power. The more we understand about the threats to our democracy, the better equipped we are to counter them.
So it's about being informed consumers of information, being vigilant about potential threats, and being actively engaged in the process both during and after the election.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires active participation from each and every one of us.
So they're trying to sabotage us because deep down they envy what we have. It's like they're saying, if we can't have it, we're going to make sure you can't either.
That's a powerful way to put it. And it makes their interference all the more insidious. They're not just trying to win an election. They're trying to break our spirit, to make us lose faith in the very idea of self-governance.
That's a pretty sobering thought. But you know what? It also makes me realize how important it is to not let them win, to not give in to that cynicism and apathy they're trying to breed.
I completely agree. If we allow ourselves to become disillusioned and disengaged, then we're playing right into their hands. We're letting them achieve their goal of weakening our democracy from within.
So what's the antidote? How do we combat this insidious attempt to erode our faith in the system?
It goes back to what we discussed earlier. Knowledge is our most potent weapon. The more informed we are about their tactics, the less effective those tactics become. And the more engaged we are in the process, the stronger our democracy becomes.
Right, it's about being informed voters, being vigilant about potential threats, and being active participants in our democracy, not just during elections, but all the time.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our democracy is this living, breathing entity that requires constant care and attention. It's a work in progress, and it's up to each of us to nurture and protect it.
Thinking about it this way, it almost flips the script. Instead of feeling powerless in the face of all these threats, it makes me feel like we actually have a lot of agency. Our actions, our choices, our engagement, it all matters.
It absolutely does. And that's a message I think we need to amplify, especially in these turbulent times. We need to remind ourselves and each other that we have the power to shape our own destiny, to defend our democracy, and to prove those who seek to undermine us wrong.
That's a powerful message of hope and resilience. And it's a reminder that this fight for our democracy isn't just about us. It's about setting an example for the rest of the world, about showing that a government of the people, by the people, for the people can still prevail.
Beautifully put. And it reinforces the idea that we're all in this together. Protecting our democracy is not a partisan issue. It's a collective responsibility.
Well said. So as we head towards November 5th and beyond, let's carry that message with us. Let's remember that we're not just choosing a leader, we're choosing the kind of country we want to live in, the kind of future we want to create. One where democracy, despite its challenges, still shines as a beacon of hope and freedom.
And that's a future worth fighting for.
Couldn't have said it better myself. A huge thank you to our editors for putting together this incredible report, and to all of you for joining us on this deep dive into the complex world of election interference. Remember, stay informed, stay engaged, and most importantly, stay hopeful. Our democracy depends on it.